What's going on? It's Live Well Check. I was trying to get my line wet today, get a little fishing in. It's 50 degrees here in northern Ohio. Obviously, ice still had a thing to say about that. Now, it's still going to be really cold around here, and the ice is going to get really thick at some point. But it hasn't really even developed in a lot of farm ponds. But for some reason, this reservoir looks like it has about an inch or so. It's kind of weird. Especially because they draw water in and out of there, and the water's a little dingy. It's clear, but it's dingy. So, I definitely didn't think that it would be frozen, but it is. So that kind of brings me to a story I wanted to tell. And I know that we all have our stories about maybe we got caught out in something or whatever. Also, new Alani flavor, Cherry Bomb, is literally bomb. It is so good. Cherry Bomb. It's like cherry cola, sugar-free, delicioso. It's good. Usually after I crack an energy drink, I catch a fish in a tournament. I don't know why that is. If you guys have something like that, let me know. There are things like that. Like my buddy would always say when he was... It wasn't a buddy. I didn't hang out with him a lot. He was way older than me, like 20, 30 years older than me. I worked with him. And I shared a boat with him twice. One time in a team tournament for Bass Pro Shops. We actually worked together at Bass Pro Shops in the same department. And they did a department versus department tournament. And you could have 2 or 3 teams in each department. But they all had to be people that worked there. So you had people of all different skill levels and knowledge and different size boats and stuff. And this wasn't even the story I was going to try to share, but he was sold. He was sold. All he had to do is light a cigarette and put a cigarette in his mouth, and before the first cigarette was done, he would get a bite. And it did work that day too. It did. I didn't even know it was a thing. He goes, I knew it. And we're like, what? What'd you do? And he goes, I lit a cigarette. Okay. So, sorry. So this story I wanted to actually tell is about some of the worst weather I've ever fished in, ever. It's hands down, it's not even close how bad this weather was. So I gotta kind of lay it out there, the story a little bit. This was a buddy tournament. Now, this was a club that at that point in time I was president of. And in this club, we took any boat of any size, right? Walleye boat, I fished my John boat out of it until I sold my John boat. Plastic boats, didn't matter. As long as you had a live well capable of keeping a limit of bass alive. And we didn't do teams. It was solo. So even if, for this tournament, I was fishing off the back of a guy's boat. Right? A guy named Mike. We call him Mikey. But I was fishing off the back of a guy's boat, and technically, we were in competition. But we would work together, right? So I think I'm going to put out some co-angler tip videos, like if you're a co-angler fishing tournaments, fun fishing with buddies, whatever it is, or maybe you have a friend or somebody in your family that allows you to get on the back of their boat, or you're just kind of an inexperienced boater as far as angling. I'm going to be putting out videos that of all different skill levels you're going to be able to take stuff from. And I try to keep it pretty entertaining because, I don't know, it's my personality. It's probably just brain damage. But for this specific story, I'm on the back of this guy's boat, and we worked together. We knew this lake. I had some spots in this lake. He had some spots. I knew a little bit of what he did. He knew a little bit of what I did. And we would work together. I would net his fish. He'd net mine. Let's say he flipped a dock a few times. He had priority. Unless it was maybe a dock that I discovered was productive, he would let me flip in there. Now, not everybody's that way. Like, if you find a stranger, a lot of times they're not going to be that way. But we knew each other. He actually was friends with my uncle a long time ago. So he had been around the family, seen me grow up, So we're going out to this lake. And this is a tournament in southern Michigan, northern Ohio area in March. And if you know anything about this region in March, could be 50 degrees, could be 10 degrees. And this particular tournament, we actually had some rain blowing in, some sprinkling, and just like a cold front. And it was, I would say it was in the 40s, right? I mean, even before the sun came up, it was in the 40s, it was sprinkling, but it's March. We're all decked out, we got all of our stuff on, our rain gear, gloves, everything. And everybody's prepared. The bad thing was that the cold front that was blowing in from the east, which I know they say wind from the east, fish bite the least, right? You ever heard that? It's kind of a thing. It's not really a thing. The main reason that that's even a thing is because a lot of times that's cold front, that's inclement weather, right? So a lot of times when the inclement weather, and I'm not talking the productive inclement weather, I'm talking about like really nasty, cold, just barometric pressure drop, just crazy, is that the fish get less active because of the conditions. It's not because of the east wind. It's not some wives' tale. Well, this wind's coming out of the east, and it was raining. It was like that steady rain. Like when you get out of the truck, you can hear it just goes, right? It just steady sound. And there's nobody else at this lake. It's March. You can kind of see your breath just a little bit. And we launch our boats. It's a smaller lake. Grass isn't really going yet. Lily pads are definitely, the stems are there, but this lake has a little bit of rock, has a lot of wood, some grass, some old pad fields where the stems are popping, and we're out there fishing, and the rain gets a little heavier. And he caught a fish pretty early. I think he was using a crankbait. He caught a fish pretty early, and I didn't really think they'd be on the moving baits, even though the condition, rain, people tell you, overcast, rain, they're on moving baits. I didn't really think it was going to be like that, so I was flipping a lot, right? And I know he caught one on a crankbait, but I also was throwing the change up. So once in a while, he'd throw a tube. I was throwing, it's called a woolly hog craw, and I should show you one. But woolly hog craw is just a creature bait. It's a very subtle, it's a beefy, short creature bait with pinchers. And I've always had a lot of success. Student driver in front of me. Man, I'm gonna have to turn off the road a little bit quicker than that, son. Action podcasting, right? So these baits, they're very subtle, but they're beefy. So it'll get you bites, but it'll also produce good ones once in a while. It's kind of like a beaver style bait, little different. I love the design. I've always loved them. I've seemed to catch decent limits of fish, 12, 14 inches, and big ones. Like it just, but so it became one of my favorites. I'm just flipping it around. I wasn't really getting any bites, and the rain gets heavier and heavier, and it wasn't a downpour, but it was close. And then all of a sudden you could see your breath even more. And you could tell the weather was changing. And it wasn't really supposed to. It was supposed to like the next day, right? Like it was going to turn into freezing rain and everything. And we're out there. The problem was weather doesn't always accurately predict when a storm is just going to turn, because it had been raining for a while. So you could just see your breath. The wind, it felt like it didn't die. And when I say it shifted, everyone knows what it feels like when wind shifts. But when a wind first starts shifting and that jet stream and that cold front is maneuvering out of a different region, or that it's pushing, it does go flat for a second. And it almost felt like it was getting colder, but it warmed up because you didn't have that chillier wind. Even though it was 40-some degrees, it was still like a chilly wind out of the east. And the problem is it shifted to the north. And around here, if you get a north wind, I think it's pretty much that anywhere. But I haven't lived in the south or the west. But up here, that wind is coming straight out of Canada. And that is cold, cold, cold wind. And that wind, when it shifted to the north, the temperature dropped, I would say probably 15 or 20 degrees within maybe an hour and a half. So all of a sudden it went from, it felt like 40-some degrees to the air temperature was probably 28. It's raining, it's spitting, and it wasn't like it probably wasn't 28. It was probably low 30s, but when the wind's blowing, but it started blowing at like 20 miles an hour. And it got so bad that Mikey was like, dude, let's just go to the truck for a little bit. I'm freezing. I was shivering. Like I was shivering. Like I couldn't stay dry. It was blowing in through underneath my hood. I couldn't stay dry. So we wound up going to the truck for a little bit. Pulled the rain gear off. He's like, just throw it in the back, spread it all out. We put it on some heaters. He put all the heaters on in the whole entire truck. It's a smaller truck. And we sat in there. We ate. Like, I've never done this. I've never left a tournament. But he was like, I got to go to the truck. He was like, I don't even care. He goes, if you want, you could take trolling motor around. And I was like, I'm good, bro. So we went to the truck. And it was cold. Cold. And he was like, hopefully the rain died down. So what we did, we got in the truck. Had one fish on the live well, left the boat at the dock, just tied off, and we sat in the truck. We sat in the truck from probably 10:30 in the morning till almost noon. No joke. We ate. I think because it was cooler, I was drinking some coffee. I had energy drinks, but I had some coffee too for like the warmth. So I drank some coffee, and we warmed up. We dried all of our stuff off. Stopped shivering for a little bit, and then we went back to the boat, and he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I know the grass is dead, but we seem to have gotten a few bites around the grass, like little ones. You caught your one keeper. It was dead grass, you wouldn't think, but it might be holding warmth. I don't know. And he said, okay. So we started going around. We knew some of the places in the lake that had grass in the summer, so we just started fishing around there. And man, I got clued in right away as he was throwing up towards the bank. He dropped the crankbait and he was throwing a tube, Texas rig tube. And that was his go-to, neon red or neon black, however you want to look at it. It's a black tube with red flake, little 1/4 ounce weight, 1/8 ounce weight, and he's flipping. And I was taking this my creature bait, hog craw, and I was throwing more in like the 8 foot. Where the deep weed line would be, and I could feel the grass just as I would pull up, and I would just lazy just hop it. And then all of a sudden I felt like a little tap, and my line kind of moved a little bit, and I set the hook, and it was like 15 incher. I thought, boom, okay. And he's like, good job, right? Because like people, you run into guys on the water, and it's just a home tournament, and they'll either tell you they're knocking their face off or they're not. And some of it's just to throw you off, and some they're being honest. Usually when they're like, I ain't getting nothing. You know what I mean? You can tell they're being honest, especially if you're really struggling too. It's honest. And nobody was really catching anything. Well, literally, so I straightened my bait out, or I had to put a new one on, and he's fishing real slow down the bank, and he's throwing to the dock posts and stuff like that, the little rocks, the seawalls. Very few on this lake, but there's seawalls and there's wood planks up there for boats. And he was throwing up there, and I threw again. So the left side of the boat is toward the bank. I threw on the right side of the boat, which is a co-angler thing. Like, you should be doing that anyway, right? he's not fishing out in front of the boat. He's fishing the bank. He's fishing real slow. He's picking everything apart. Doesn't mean I can't go in there and catch one after him, because I've done this to several people. But I was fishing the deeper because we weren't really on a bite. Plus, I just caught one. So I flipped almost by the trolling motor and underneath the boat. And I was just kind of pulling up. Boom. Set the hook. So it was like 2 flips in a row. And then about 5 minutes later, I caught another one. So we're back in this cove. Next thing you know, I got 3 keepers. He has 1. And he's like, what are you doing? So I told him. And so we started kind of fishing around like that for the rest of the day. Well, right after we left that cove, we went to another spot where there's normally a lot of lily pads. And I was like, why don't we try fishing some of these pad stems? And so he was fishing out in the deeper, which that was where I caught one. But pad stems are a little different because we weren't fishing pad stems where it was deeper. It was more like coontail. So I flip all the way up on this flat where these pad stems are, and I'm just dragging it, and you're bumping into the pad stems. I'm dragging it like flat, like I'm pulling it flat. I'm not hopping it. I'm pulling it flat, just kind of, and I do that, and then before I know it, I hit a pad stem, and I try to like jiggle it past it real slow, and it felt like I was pulling it. But because it was so cold, there was no grass up there yet. In the summertime, there's grass mixed in. So I kind of reeled down and I went like this. And I was like, I'm stuck on the pad. So I went to pull, and it felt like I was just pulling mud, right? Like a leaf or something. So I set the hook, and before I knew it, I had a monster on. Like an absolute monster. Yeah. Fighting around the boat. It's pouring rain. Wind's whipping. He's like, do you need the net? And I was like, I don't know, and it's cold. They don't really fight, and I'm cold, my rod's just bent. And she went to wallow at the side of the boat, and I flipped her in, and it went 5 1/4. Big fish of the day. Obviously, I was hooting and hollering. I was very warm after that, but we finished our day. I caught a limit. I think he wound up catching 3. I don't think he caught any on a tube, but he caught him on a crankbait. So he was kind of doing the same thing as I was doing. He was throwing quartering, and he was catching them out a little deeper. But we only maybe caught 10 fish all day. And I caught that really, really big one for this area. And then I caught, 3 around 2 pounds, 1 at about 3 pounds. It was a good day. But yeah, so when there's those times where you don't really want to fish because it's freezing cold and it's raining, you don't think you're going to have any success, grind it out. That's what we did. We literally sat in a truck for an hour and a half. I've never done it before then or since then, ever. And we got out of that truck, and you kind of feel like a wuss, you let Mother Nature win. But as soon as we got out of that truck, it was like focus had reset in. But it was a good day. Wound up being a really good day. All right. Well, that was just a story of me fishing some of the worst weather I've ever fished in. And I'll catch you later.